make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Finally! StreamYards did not want to let go today. Little clingy. They're a little clingy. Okay. So I didn't expect a big turnout for today because I get that that sexy topics are the ones where you get the attention. Actually got a comment here. Holy crap. Hey, Naomi Hernandez. Hey. A Jedis 1027. I'll just say Jedi. How about that, Eric? Anyway, that's what we'll call ya. That's what we'll call ya. Anyway, so thank you for coming today. Let me see. Let me pop some. There we go. That way I can see my chats. All right. Okay. So it seems a little bit esoteric today. Oh, hello. Kaltenberg. Hello. Naomi and Kathleen. Hello. All right. 67. Okay. Not sure what 67 is, but thank you. Welcome. Anyway, so basically, so what is my premise today? My premise is that I've been taking a look at my nephews. My brother adopted two young boys. Their mother was a bit of a disaster, and she lost custody of her children. And they actually begged my brother to take the children because they wanted to keep them near the family, or at least in the family. My brother did so, and then wound up eventually having to adopt because she never could get her business right. Passed away from a drug overdose last year sometime, early, R.I.P. But, being exposed to my nephews, I've been noticing some things about these little nut jobs. Some very interesting things. I'm not entirely sure what that is, Naomi. Okay. Anyway. But, alright, So, what am I talking about? Well, there's some things that I've kind of uploaded to kind of give us an idea. Now, we're going to start out with my generation. Gen X is one of the more unique generations, and it has some very distinctive traits about them. This video kind of sums it up.
I think we can all agree that if we're generalizing, Gen X is the worst generation.
Okay, if this is happening, if Gen Z is picking a fight with Gen X in the same way that millennials picked fights with boomers, you need to be prepared. Just to give my credentials, I am a cusp millennial, right? I'm one of the first ones, right? Meaning I have a lot of exposure to Gen X. My older brother is Gen X. He is firmly Gen X. And he is fair. The stereotype of Gen X, obviously, is that they don't care. They do not care. Right. And I think on the surface level, you think, okay, well, that's going to be easy. Then, no, there was almost no visual record of Gen X when they were younger, meaning they could do whatever they wanted and not have to worry ever about a video resurfacing as they got older. You combine that with the fact that most of their parents are older boomers who gave them very little parental supervision, and that is a dangerous combination, my friends. A direct result of that is that the Gen X that you're seeing today are the ones that survived. They fear nothing. Millennials, like we were the first ones that had these programs in schools in place telling us that all the dangerous things we saw our older siblings doing were bad. As a result, many of the weak ones of us lived on. I'm a direct proof of that. So all I'm saying is just be careful. They're going to act like they don't care. But so do serial killers. And to any Gen X seeing this, know that I am saying this out of deep respect and also deep fear. Please do not come after me. I'm very sensitive.
Okay, that was a little overblown. Okay, a little fun. But there's a few attributes that he brought up. Okay, first of all, parental, shall we say, apathy is something that Gen X grew up with. And that gave us a desire to kind of like make our mark, if you see most of the innovations that have come out, most of the ones that completely changed the 20th century, they happen to come from the Gen X generation. And it had to do with the fact that as technology was coming in, Gen X was there at the beginning. They were at the, when like that technology kind of came available to the public, Gen X were the first ones. They were the guinea pigs. They were the ones who got the Apple II, and just kind of like the first PCs, the first internet, the first everything. Okay, so they were at the beginning of the technology, but they grew up most of the time. They grew up without the technology, and so the early adoption kind of took in their late teens. 20s into 30s, and so you got a generation who was very bored, ignored, and adventurous. Okay, those attributes are very important to our discussion. The one I'm going to bring up. Okay, we catch up on comments right quick. Miss Naomi. Okay. It actually is correct. Blissful, welcome, hello. Wow, you have quite the chat thing going on. Hola, we're hey, Wrangler, good to see you. Flexible, yes, very flexible. Right. And we had to be. Gen X had to be flexible. But there's another thing that Gen X lived with. They lived with isolation. We're the first latchkey kids. The parents went to work, and so we spent a lot of time by ourselves, amusing ourselves, which is why our creativity just kind of like took off. Naomi, I don't know what all this is, and I'm not going to keep bringing it up. So, if you want to communicate as a human, that would be fine. But I don't even know if you're a bot at this point, so I'm not going to bring his stuff up. All right. Anyway, so they grew up in isolation, but they also grew up with the Cold War hanging over their heads. Okay, that was a very distinctive thing. That was very distinctive Gen X. All of our art, we lived with that nuclear bomb threat. Just there the whole time. Now the Boomers also lived with that, but things hadn't escalated to the point where Russia had their own nukes and America had their own nukes, and they were threatening each other almost full time. Yeah. Yep. Take your meds. Yep. Please do that. I like my isolation. I don't understand why all these other folk like keep doing that thing where it's called, oh yeah, talk. Yeah, I know. Okay, but that's interesting. Nonverbal. Gen X is very nonverbal. They like communicate through their art. They communicate through other means, but they don't really. Okay, no, you are a human. Okay, all right. Thank you for verifying. But now when it comes to Gen Alpha, now the millennials, they were kind of like raised mostly by the boomers, and it seemed like the boomers were more interested in the millennials because it's almost like they were like the generation that the boomers decided to pour themselves into and make more like themselves. And so the millennials, they're more like the boomers, okay? They're, cause-oriented, all obsessed with, like, the nanny culture. Millennials are the ones who the boomers seem to be determined to leave their world to. So they're skipping over Gen X and they're going straight to millennials, okay? Over-parenting. Yeah, right. Yep, that's a good point. Yeah, over-parenting. Also, the Gen Z. Now, Gen Z, we're seeing a lot of attributes in Gen Z. But Gen Z is almost split right down the middle. Gen Z is almost like the ultimate outcome of the millennials. Half of them are just like really, really nuts. Gen Z that have gone off the rails are way, way off the rails. But the Gen Z, it's like half of the generation is that, and then the other half is more based than probably any of the previous two generations. They're probably the most based generation. So, but it's kind of like half down the middle. It's almost like it's almost bipolar. Gen Z is a very bipolar generation, and so they're really hard to pigeonhole one way or another. You almost have to split Gen Z in half and talk about them separately. But Gen Alpha's got some very distinctive personality traits. They're out bag full of lunch, sit out the door to walk to school. Yeah, we did indeed. But let me go ahead and explore both of these generations. I have a couple of videos here. Now we'll start out with Gen X. I used the same person to describe both, and so let me bring Gen X first. All right, here we go.
What are the main characteristics of Generation X? In today's fast-paced world, understanding the characteristics of Generation X is more relevant than ever. As this generation navigates the complexities of modern life, many are curious about their unique traits and experiences. With a growing interest in how this generation influences society, let's take a closer look at what defines them. Generation X includes individuals born between the early 1960s and the early 1980s. This generation grew up during a time of significant social change and technological advancements. Their upbringing has shaped their worldview and daily life in many ways. Many Generation Xers grew up in households where both parents worked. This led to increased independence from a young age. They experienced rising divorce rates and social fragmentation, contributing to a self-reliant mindset. This independence is often reflected in their parenting styles, which prioritize flexibility and autonomy for their children. When it comes to technology, Generation X was the first to grow up with personal computers and the internet. They also experienced the predigital era, making them adept at navigating both analog and digital worlds. This unique blend has influenced their preferences and habits. Music, especially alternative and grunge genres, played a significant role during their formative years. In the workplace, Generation X is known for their strong work ethic and flexibility. They have witnessed major changes in the job market, including the rise of the gig economy and remote work. Many Generation Xers focus on stability and security in their careers, adapting to the evolving landscape of employment. Their values and mindset are often described as pragmatic and independent. They value work-life balance and tend to be skeptical of authority. This skepticism has roots in the social upheaval and political distrust they experienced growing up. Generation Xers are practical and capable of navigating various social environments. Culturally, Generation X has been influenced by a mix of traditional values from their parents and the emerging digital culture of their youth. This blend has shaped their views on family, work, and social issues. They are seen as a bridge between the baby boomers and millennials, reflecting a unique combination of traditional and modern values. Overall, Generation X is characterized by adaptability, independence, and a practical approach to life. Their experiences have shaped a generation that is both nostalgic for the past and open to the changes of the future. Understanding these traits can help us appreciate their role in today's society.
Yep, millennials are kind of split as well. Yep, good point. And 67, wife is 83. There are differences. Wow, that's quite a distance there. Sounds like you're making it work though. There you go. Analog and digital. We're digilog. Yeah, there you go. Now, she also brought up a point about marriages that were disintegrating. Okay. Now the millennials, the boomers came from mostly intact marriages, marriages that lasted generations, and to death do you part was a thing. Now, the boomers did not have any such compunctions, and so the divorce rate just went through the roof, okay? Also, another thing that went through the roof was abortions. And so, when the boomers got the right to an abortion, they, the supposedly, Roe v. Wade right to abortion, they used it, okay? That's why if you look at the population numbers, the boomer generation was like here, and then Gen X is like not even half of what the boomers were. And it's because most of us died in abortion mills. Planned Parenthood took out most of Generation X. Okay, now that kind of began to rebound some in the millennials, and Gen Z also. Gen Z is actually a larger generation than millennials are. Numbers really have popped back quite a bit. So Gen Alpha is going to be one of the larger generations we've had in a long time. Yep, may continue to work. Our culture is desperate need of families with strong bonds, right? Definitely. Yeah, it works. There you go. All right. So, how does that compare to Gen Alpha? Okay, same lady, same format. So let me see what she has to say about Gen Alpha.
What are the characteristics of Generation Alpha? In today's fast-paced world, a new generation is emerging that is capturing everyone's attention. Generation Alpha, consisting of children born from 2010 to 2024, is unlike any before it. With technology at their fingertips from birth, these kids are shaping the future in ways we are just beginning to understand. As parents and educators seek to connect with this generation, many are asking, what are the characteristics of Generation Alpha? Generation Alpha is known as digital natives. They have grown up surrounded by smartphones, tablets, and smart devices. This constant access to technology has influenced how they learn and communicate. Their learning styles are primarily visual and kinesthetic. They prefer interactive and engaging content that keeps them interested. Flexibility is a key trait of Generation Alpha. They can easily switch between different digital tools and platforms. This adaptability allows them to learn in ways that suit their preferences. Their communication methods are also evolving. They have developed their own slang, with terms like skibbity, sigma, and gyat becoming part of their everyday language. Digital literacy is another defining characteristic. Generation Alpha is highly proficient in navigating digital platforms. They use technology not just for entertainment but also for education. This proficiency impacts their social interactions, as they are accustomed to instant access to information and social networks. In the classroom, teachers play a vital role in guiding Generation Alpha's learning. Effective incorporation of technology into lessons is essential. Tailoring teaching methods to fit their learning styles helps ensure that these students receive relevant education. Social and cultural trends also shape Generation Alpha. They grow up in a world where digital communication is the norm. This environment influences their social behaviors and cultural preferences. As they continue to grow, understanding these characteristics will be essential for parents and educators alike. In recent discussions, many are focusing on how to best support Generation Alpha in their educational journeys. With their unique traits and experiences, this generation is poised to redefine what it means to learn and communicate in the modern world.
Okay. Now, now you're already seeing some similarities that are seem to be popping up. Okay. Now, some similarities such as they're technologically fascinated or captured, which is something that Gen X became. Gen X, any new thing that came out, any new technology came out, Gen X adopted it almost immediately, and so they didn't take it for granted. They just jumped right on it. And now, what are we looking at? We're looking at the AI like tools that are coming in. Now, that's like almost a brand new computer revolution. It's like the next revolution. The only revolution that compares to the AI revolution is the PC revolution, which Gen X lived through. Okay, the marriages, the broken marriages, that is a reality for Gen Alpha. That was also beginning with Gen X. Now, the other generations, they did have to deal with that because marriages have been disintegrating. But it's affected Alpha more than it's affected the other generations. And very importantly, the pandemic, or whatever you want to call it. The C word, which YouTube won't let me say. Okay. So the Cold War and parents going to work caused Gen X to what? We went straight home and locked ourselves in. And we didn't interact with each other. We kind of had to entertain ourselves. So what happens? The pandemic happens. And what does Gen Alpha have? They get sent home from school. And they have to, basically the interaction went all online. And they didn't really get to weather. And so, similar isolation matrix, okay? So, also, around this time, the simply call it government lockdowns. There you go. Yeah, the pandemic, I like to call it. I don't know if that's gonna get me suppressed, but it is what it is. But anyway, so what you have here is you have two different generations, 2 generations apart. Okay, both generations. No problem, Naomi. No problem. No need to apologize. No worries. Okay. So, so you got 2 generations here. You got both of them are insular. Both of them had to entertain themselves quite a bit. Now, you're going to see a lot of videos online. The reason why my mind started sparking off of this, just look at the videos of little Gen X or Gen Alpha kids. Excuse me. One in particular I watched is they were taking a cover, like a convertible cover, up on a hill, and the parents were going like, "Oh, this ain't a good idea," and yet they carried it all the way up to the hill, and they both hopped on it, and they both slid down the hill. Now, we didn't get to see the disaster that was probably going to inevitably happen once they hit the bottom of the hill in that video. But I was like, who does that remind me of? A KC 135 for chatting over. Well, thanks for the update, my friend. Yeah. Or the Kung Flu. That's one of my favorites. Nice and irreverent. Just like... yeah, I'm not going to bring that up, my friend. Kung Flu. Yep. Thanks for the updates, but I'm not going to bring that up. That's not what this show's about. All right. So basically, so you got these generations. They're about 2 generations apart. You got both of them are smaller generations for various reasons. They're also very insular. They also get hold on a second. There we go. All right. So they're also like very, self-contained. They entertain themselves, and they're also very skeptical. Gen Alpha happens to be a very skeptical generation, and the reason why is because Gen Alpha was there when we started seeing the nature of the beast, when the teachers suddenly started saying things that weren't trustworthy and started like foisting their own ideology on the classrooms. That really hit during Gen Alpha, and so the tail of Gen Z got a lot of it, and early Gen Z got a lot of it, but Gen Z at the tail end of Gen Z, they started rejecting it. Gen Alpha has really rejected it, and so you got a skeptical group of kids who are basically, they're not listening. That's to the degree that earlier generations were, and so essentially, they're very similar to Gen X, because Gen X, we got a lot of things that happened during the course of our generation that made us question what we were being told. And so we came the Department of Education came in about midway through, or at the tail end of Gen X, and so a lot of that stuff was building from the early 70s up till Carter signed the bill. And I remember being told a lot of narratives. Holy either, hey. Yep, it's beard. But I remember being told a lot of narratives that didn't make a lot of sense. And I remember being very skeptical of a lot of stuff we were being told. And a lot of that, I've looked at like textbooks from before my generation, and there's a real shift. You see, most of the textbooks came from California. After a certain point, we started getting all of our California achievement tests and everything came from California. And so I don't know who made the choice to start like getting all our educational materials from deepest, darkest California. But that decision was made sometime during the 70s. And so I remember getting stuff, reading it, and it's like, that don't sound right. And one of the things about getting the internet was finding out so much of what we were told was bunk, okay? But that's really moved along for Gen Alpha, because Gen Alpha went through the pandemic. You know, they were told to mask up, and, you know, they weren't allowed to see people's faces. They weren't allowed to go visit grandma. They weren't allowed to go to school and have their prom or anything like that. And so Gen Alpha is a kind of a bitter, embittered generation. Very similar to us. And so I'm seeing a lot of qualities in these little crumb crunchers. The land of fruits and nuts. There you go. Yeah, they do a lot of fruits and they do have nuts there. But I'm starting to see a lot of similar characteristics. This video kind of brings that out. Hold on a second. Yep. Here you go.
Gen X, 1965 to 1980. Now this group, the original latchkey kids. Divorce rates were climbing. Both parents worked. So Gen X learned to microwave their own dinners, entertain themselves, and not talk about feelings. Ever. They grew up skeptical, independent, and allergic to BS. If you gave them a participation trophy, they'd probably melt it into a ninja star. Now enter Gen Alpha, who looked at all of this and said, "Hold my juice box." Gen Alpha didn't just grow up with technology. They were born in it. Cue the Bane voice. This is the first generation to come home from the hospital and get their face posted on Instagram before they even had a name. The first to use voice commands before forming full sentences. The first to grow up during a time when you could literally say, "I learned that on TikTok," and no one blinks. Their reality is shaped by three major forces. 1. Touchscreens greater than textbooks. Most alphas knew how to swipe before they could speak. YouTube is their tutor, their babysitter, and sometimes their parent. Reading a book feels slow. Watching a 5-second video feels normal. And multitasking? That's their baseline, not a skill. 2nd, pandemic childhood. Let's not underestimate this. A huge chunk of their early years happened in isolation. FaceTime replaced playdates. Zoom became kindergarten. Parents were stressed, jobs were unstable, routines were chaos. Some kids thrived with the flexibility. Others, they're still catching up emotionally, academically, socially.
Okay, you're starting to see my point. But I mean, they really, a lot of these attributes seem very familiar to me. In that, hold on a second. Let me see. You're one of those guys that does not know it was the entire planet. I don't know where you got that from. Americans are funny. They think the United States is a planet. No, we do not. And let's see. What's the last disingenuous statement? Yeah, that COVID shit. We were the last country to shut down. Congratulations. I'm molded by it. Right. Molded by it. Right. And so, so you got the, one thing about Gen Alpha that I think is very interesting is they're growing up in the new media, environment. In other words, the narrative is not being spoon-fed to them like it was to us. Now, we look at these things, and we rejected the whole entire premise of it. But Gen Alpha is actually, they're able to cross-check things in real time. And they have access to stuff that we don't. Okay, here we go. Yes, we do. Most Americans take core planet all ourselves separate from the rest of the planet. Okay, I don't know if that's all Americans. I think that's a generalization that I don't agree with. That, yes, there are people that do. There are definitely, especially millennial generations and half of Gen Z. But anyway, so what we're looking at is a group, like Gen Z's, Gen X's almost primary, almost the default for Gen X is skepticism. Theories and online you will find are Gen X. A lot of the people that say this stuff. This point might as well be the new USSR. Okay, I'm not entirely sure what this conversation is, but that's okay. When I was your age, I had to go to libraries, bookstores to chase conspiracy theories. Yeah. There you go. One thing about a lot of things is that did I bring a comment up? I think I did. Okay. Yeah, with Generation X, they were very skeptical, very insular. Here we go. Let's see. I'm from the St. Patrick people. Okay. Wow. Congratulations. Hope you kissed the Blarney Stone for me. All right. But they are very insular generations. They're very skeptical generations, and they're almost fearless. You watch a lot of these Gen Alphas. They got cooped up in like a good chunk of their childhood, and they are making up for lost time. I've been watching these videos all day long of kids in that Gen Alpha age range that are doing crazy stuff that reminds me so much of Gen X. And the reason why people aren't making that association, except for Gen X will make this association because Gen X remembers. There was no video evidence of when we did it. There was no proof to be had from when we did it. And so there's not a lot of photographic evidence that we jumped off of buildings, that we, threw rocks at each other, that we, climbed on rusty stuff, and basically had wars on a pile of bricks that was full of snakes. But anyway, so basically, I don't think dark ages. They weren't taking pictures. They weren't taking videos. They weren't documenting anything. They pretty much sent you out the door. I don't want to see you till the lights come on. Whatever you do, go with God. There was a thing that came on the television saying, "Do you know where your child is?" It's such and such o'clock. Do you know where your child is? And then boomers are kind of like, oh yeah, that's what I was forgetting. And then they call, go to the door and call us. But see, that because of that, there's a whole lot of stuff that Gen X got into that I know for a fact we got into that's not documented. But you watch this Gen Alpha, everything's documented because we're living in the internet age. And because we're living in the internet age, I'm seeing them do a lot of things that I know we did. But we don't have the proof, we don't have like anything but our scars to give permanent. Okay. Huh? Is he on? No, he's not. Okay. But so basically, we don't have anything but the scars to give us an indication that we did all this stuff. Hold on a second. I've heard that some kids are actually surprised we would drink from the garden hose. I'm serious. What else would you drink from? What else would you drink from outside? You run it till all the hot water, the steaming hot water got out of it, and all the spiders and all the nastiness, and you wait till it ran clean. You had to wait till it runs clean. You don't want to get a mouthful. And then as soon as it was clean and as soon as it was tepid, it'll get cool, but as long as it's tepid, then you drink out of it. I know the procedure because I drank my share of hose water. And there's also sprinklers. Remember the sprinklers? That was a big thing. You put a sprinkler down, and you run across the sprinkler, things like that. We did a lot to amuse ourselves. But you're seeing a lot of stuff for this Gen Alpha that are doing to make up for lost time. And they are a really interesting generation. My nephews happen to be part of that generation. And I'm seeing inquisitiveness in them. I'm seeing an isolation, self-control, and not necessarily self-control, but definitely self-possession in them that I haven't seen since my generation, in that they were forced to, in isolation, to figure out how to figure themselves out, And don't forget the slip and slide. Oh, yeah. The slip and slide. Or if you were poor, you just took a whole bunch of plastic, garbage bags, and attached them together some haphazard way. Roll them out across the slanted part of the lawn, and then run the hose on it. And then just, yeah. And if you made it to the bottom, you made it to the bottom. So, so basically, what we're looking at here is we're looking at I think we're looking at Gen X Part 2. I think we're looking at a mini-me of Gen X, and as Gen X starts taking over from the boomers are finally letting go of the world with their cold, dead fingers. And they're finally starting to having, not by retirement, death. They were holding on till death. I mean, Dianne Feinstein basically didn't know where she was, and yet they had her in Congress. And I don't think Mitch McConnell was winning any debates right now. And so, I mean, asbestos lead point generation. Yeah, we definitely did that. Right. But I think because of that isolation, because of that parental, it wasn't apathy, it was kind of like distance that was created artificially. I think they, through the stupidity of the whole entire pandemic, I think they created their worst nightmare. I think they created another Gen X. I think they trying to suppress Gen X and keep Gen X away from the reins of power. desperately to the point where they shut everything down. I think they inadvertently created a whole entire generation that's very similar to the one that they're trying to ignore, trying to make go away, tried to kill in Planned Parenthoods across America. And I think what we're going to see as these young alphas, Gen Alphas, start hitting the workforce, which will be in a couple of years. They're right now they're in high schools across the country. I think what we're going to see, the first Gen Alphas are starting to hit the workforce, are coming into colleges. I think right now. But I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a very either scary generation or a very interesting and powerful generation that are going to be very innovative and they're going to be very clever. And I really think that we are on the cusp of either very interesting times or scary times, and I don't think it's going to be in between. This Gen Alpha generation is just going to be really interesting, I think. But I would say this to the young people that I've encountered from this generation, that we see you, and we're down for it. We're totally down for it. You're like our best revenge. And interestingly enough, because Gen X was having children so late, I mean, we're talking into their 30s and 40s. A lot of this Gen Alpha and late Gen Z are from Gen X parents. And so that might have something to do with it also. But I think it's going to be very, very interesting. But anyway, so thank you all for coming. I had a very strange kind of stream today, I must say. But it's been very interesting. But thank you all for coming, and we will see you next time. This is the off week for Cryptids and Conspiracies. That will return next Saturday. And next Monday, next time you see me, will be another Bunny is Thinking. And hold on a second. If I can get my daughter's face out of a tablet, yeah. There you go. Well, that is true. That is definitely true, my friend. Have another good one. Yep. See you, man. Yep. But, yep. So, next Monday will be another Bunny is Thinking. I'm not entirely sure what the bunny's going to be thinking about. But usually it's topical. I think what I'm going to be thinking about is the return of the hero. Return of the traditional hero. I've been talking a lot about Project Hail Mary here lately. And I'm seeing a lot of projects that are starting to show up, that are starting to come out of the pipeline, that look like a return to that hero, the classic hero. And I think Project Hail Mary is probably going to be one of the first ones that we're going to see. But I don't think it's going to be the last. And so we're going to talk about what constitutes that traditional hero. Why is it important? And we're going to talk about some projects that I think are going to have that kind of hero in them. And that's coming up Monday. So thank y'all for coming. Y'all have a very good day. And we will see you next time. Follow that rabbit. Soon as StreamYards lets me.